Hi, I'm Joe Chili. Mornings from 7 to 9 on Buffalo's oldie station, The Big Weck. Joining us on The Big Weck's Buffalo on the Rise today is Jonathan McDonell from BAM Acupuncture. Jonathan.
Hey, Joe. It's good to be back.
How you doing? Nice to see you.
I'm doing great. You having a good summer?
I am. You know, it's funny because when Jonathan walked in, I went to shake his hand and I kind of went like this. He goes, "What's wrong with your shoulder?" I thought about it for a second. I go, "It is a little stiff." What do you think? He notices it right off the bat. You know, Buffalo Advanced Medical Acupuncture, we call it BAM Acupuncture, is revolutionizing chronic pain management. That's what we talk about. And, you know, when you're talking about whether it be, you know, neuropathy or whatever it might be, and, you know, you've got some great ideas, some great methods to do this, and we're not necessarily taking a pill and making it go away, right? And, you know, and the pill is just always, you know, most times, is just to mask it, right?
Yeah, mask it, or, you know, sometimes it makes you worse, or sometimes you end up taking pills for your pills for your pills. And that is, you know, that is a big, huge motivating factor for a lot of patients that come into our office, especially like you mentioned, peripheral neuropathy. One of the medications they hand out like candy for neuropathy is gabapentin. You know, if you have neuropathy, I'm sure you've probably heard this medication. And you know, that's one where patients start to build a tolerance, so they just increase the dosage, and it gets to a point where you're like a walking zombie, you know? So, I mean, your feet still hurt, your nerves are dull, and then you're walking around in a fog all day long. I mean,
was that not made as a pain medication? Was it made as something else?
Actually, yeah. I mean, that is actually intended to be a seizure medication, but they use it for all kinds. I've seen them give it for people with migraines. It's almost like a shot in the dark medicine. Like, you know, we've tried everything else. This seems like it's pain. Maybe it's your nerves that are involved. Let's try this and see if it helps. And that's one that, you know, people that come to see, that causes more problems than it actually fixes.
Yeah, one of the other things we've talked about in previous interviews is fibromyalgia. What exactly is that?
You know, that's another disease that for a long, long time was very poorly understood, probably is fairly poorly understood today. I mean, at least today it's recognized. You know, in the 80s, 90s, like if you had fibromyalgia, it was kind of like, oh, this person's crazy kind of thing. And I think the reason for that is because it is a weird disease. You know, you get this kind of migrating pain, your muscles are really sore, you're fatigued. I have a young girl I'm treating right now for fibromyalgia. She looks perfectly healthy, but she doesn't feel that way. You know, so that's a tough one to really, for people to understand and really feel how these people are living day to day with this condition. But yeah, I mean, we have great results with that. There's a lot, and what we do for that, you know, it's not just acupuncture. The key to treating fibromyalgia and even peripheral neuropathy is we combine a lot of more modern integrative techniques with our more traditional approaches. Again, all natural, no medications, but we're taking the most modern advancements. For example, our ATP resonance therapy. That's a technology that was developed by NASA. You know, they were using that to help for bone density and muscle wasting when people are in weightlessness. You know, so that's something that we use now, and it works for nerve health. You know, it'll work for muscle health or things like that. So that's what makes BAM unique, and that's why we're able to turn the tide for a lot of people who otherwise are kind of hopeless.
Fibromyalgia, is it traditionally happen to males, females, or does it just run across the board?
Definitely that is something you see more in females, for whatever reason that may be. It's, you know, I think a reason for that, you see that a lot in females, at least in my office, what I see is it's childbirth. You know, women will have a baby, they don't give themselves adequate time to recover. Years and years later, they end up paying for that. And a lot of times that's what we can kind of track it back to. But I mean, that's not always the case, but that is kind of the key. You know, I think that's the difference. If you're somebody who you've been told you just have to learn to live with this, you know, there is no solution for you. People come to me and I think it's just a different perspective. You know, I look at everything, the forest, you know, if you will. And we try to put those pieces together like a puzzle, and that's often the difference for people.
You know, it's funny because I wrote down when we were doing an interview once, learn to live with it equals BAM Acupuncture, you know, as the solution. As you know, when somebody says to you, learn to live with it, you should question and think, you know, do I really have to learn to live with it? Now, in some instances, I'm sure people will come to you and there's something that, I don't want to say that they're too far gone, but maybe it's gone on for years and decades or whatever the case may be. And then you'll tell them, though, if it's something you don't think you can help them with, right?
You know, sadly with these chronic diseases, people do get kicked around from specialist to specialist, and time takes a toll, and there does come a point with a lot of these conditions where you reach the point of no return. I would say that's more the exception than the rule by the time people get in to see me, but yeah, absolutely. You know, we do preliminary testing on certain conditions and things like that just to screen you. And that's why it is so important for that consultation, to screen you to see if you really are a good candidate for what we do. You know, that's the first thing.
And okay, we've talked about, you know, fibromyalgia and things like this, peripheral neuropathy. But what about things like, we just have a couple of minutes left, but muscular pain, but sleep disturbances. How about something like that? Do you work with that too?
Yeah, I have a patient today that was originally why he started coming in. He was having anxiety sleep disorders. So that is definitely something that we see a lot of. Migraines, we get a lot of patients with chronic head pain that don't have solutions. I don't know if you've seen our commercials run on this air, but there's one with Wendy. She's one of our headache patients. She had a headache for like 2 years, you know, and constant, waking up every day with head pain. And that's something we were able to turn the tide. She's living a happy life now, good mom again. One of the more recent things would be long COVID. You know, that's kind of a weird thing, but we're seeing a lot of that now creeping up.
And people with that brain fog, and they're kind of like, All right, so what's their first step? You know, we've got about 30 seconds left. What should people do?
Yeah, we keep it really easy for you. You know, the first step would be call our office, 632-2207. You're going to speak with one of our patient care coordinators. They're going to set you up with a consultation. You'll come in, we'll sit down. I like to review your history. If you're a good candidate, then I'm going to give you a real clear picture of what it's going to look like from beginning to end and where we can take you and get you back to enjoying a beautiful summer, right? You only get 4 months of it.
That's great, thank you. For more information and answers to your questions, contact Buffalo Advanced Medical Acupuncture by calling 716-632-2207 or go to bamacupuncture.com. Sponsorship and promotional consideration for the preceding segment was provided by Buffalo Advanced Medical Acupuncture, and you can start your day with me weekday mornings 7 to 9 a.m. on The Big Weck.